Hi, my name is Bob Lusak, and I have a question for you. Are you a successful professional that's tired of micromanagement or working for jerks? And, and maybe you're not hugely successful if you're any kind of professional that knows their stuff, you're probably going to answer yes, you're tired of that. Um, Let me tell you my story about that because I bounced around and it's an exciting story for me. I hope it is for you too. It's about how I kind of found my way because I didn't really know what my purpose in life was till way later. But I had it burning inside of me, pushing me along to discover the path that I could find to discover. And now I'm a successful creative director. And I started out as an artist, and I painted, and I sculpted, and I did all kinds of stuff. And I found a career in creating environments. Now I work in the theme park industry and hospitality industry. So I've done big, great, huge casinos that have been wildly successful. I put some theme parks on the map with the stuff that I'm doing. So I found a career and became notably successful with it, and I'm proud of that. And everything was going along fine, which is my next point is I created a nice stable career out of all that sort of indecision and not really knowing where I wanted to go and what's my purpose in life. I finally gelled into this specific career that encompassed all the things that I had done before I really kind of gelled it and discovered it. And we'll talk more about what that purpose was that drove me to that later. But the point I want to make here at this level is because things weren't stable, because I really didn't know where I was going, I didn't want to really have a family. So because my parents provided an incredibly stable environment for me growing up. I was born in Phoenix, and we had the same home all the way up into my adulthood. So I always had a home to go to. There was always something to eat. There was always a safe place to go to, and it was a physical thing. It wasn't just some idea of home is where the heart is. No, there was when I joined the band and the first time I dropped out of college and joined the band and ran off to do tours in California with the band, and we came to the end of the road, and I barely had enough money in my wallet to buy a bus ticket. I had a place to spend that last $40 on a place to go home to. So, and I knew that once I got there, I'd have a place to sleep. It was safe. Mom and Dad may not be real happy about it, but it was a stable environment for me to wander off and do all the crazy stuff that I was trying to do in my life. So, and I'm thankful for that. And Mom and Dad, rest in peace. Thank you so much for creating that platform for me. So when it came to that decision for me about having a family, I wanted to have that same sense of stability. I wanted to have, maybe not a physical place wasn't so important, but financially I had to be stable, and mentally I had to be in pretty good shape, and spiritually, and all those sort of relationship kind of things. I wanted to have that decent environment before I had kids, and I made it. I found it. I got it, right? And now I have two really wonderful children, and everything was going along peachy, great. And I thought, oh, this is great because I can take this career and the position that I've gotten in this company that I'm with, and I can ride that just right into the sunset. And then there was a management change. and it was painful because this guy came in, and this guy was incredibly intelligent, but a real idiot in my opinion about what we were doing. He was quite knowledgeable in the industry and had experience in the industry, and he was intelligent enough to get in charge of me and everyone that I was working with. So, and he started to employ his different ways of doing things, and it upset everyone's apple cart because we had established. I had surrounded myself with people, other professionals that knew what they were doing, and I will grant you, I got a little lazy. I got comfortable. We all kind of got a little bit comfortable because we had set up a team and we'd gone through some battles and we kind of knew the culture of the company now and we'd watch each other's back and we knew when things were, really an alarming situation and when that's just another, that's just another somebody crying wolf. That won't turn into anything, so we wouldn't pay it as too much of attention. We got comfortable. I got comfortable. Maybe too comfortable, and a little bit complacent because as a creative director, you got to be out on the edge a little bit. You got to be pushing the envelope because it's not management, it's not operations, it's not continuing stuff. It's creating new things. So if you're not out there, you're probably not doing your job properly. So I will confess to that, But what I watched happen was the really difficult part, and even more so when I tell you the rest of this, because what started to happen is I saw these trusted colleagues that I was working with start to get thrown out the door, and they weren't. That's the insidiousness of this, is they weren't thrown out the door. They weren't. Nobody went to them and said, "Oh, we're changing things, and I'm so sorry, but there's no room for you in this new situation. Thanks so much for your service. Bye bye." The way that was done was to make life so miserable for them, to undermine them, to degrade them, to humiliate them, to take away their authorities and their powers and their effectiveness until the situation was so miserable that they left. Not because someone asked them, because it was intolerable to stay there anymore. Same thing was happening to me. I watched my authority taken away. I watched all the resources that I had taken away. Sometimes we have these devils that come into our lives, these miserable characters that stir things up, and I'm really appreciative. I'm really appreciative that it stirred up because it led me to these new discoveries that we'll discuss. But it was miserable, and the most miserable part, this stable environment that I was creating for my family at home turned to crap because I was so frustrated and so caught up and so miserable by the situations that were presented to me at work, and by these frustrations and by this micromanagement and by this intolerable stuff that I knew was silly and a waste of time, and no one seemed to listen to my experience and expertise. Not that I knew every answer. No one ever knows all the answers, but when you've gone through something 4 or 5 times and you see what does work and what doesn't work, and you're a professional that has had this experience, but someone won't listen to you and they go and do it anyhow, and then what you thought was going to happen happens. You get, oh man, and so I was, every day, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And then as the resources were left and people were getting kicked out, and how they were being kicked out was just making me a wreck, totally stressing out. And that, I brought that home. So not only was I having a tough time at work, I became a miserable husband, a terrible father to the kids, these 2 beautiful kids that I was trying to create a stable environment for. The exact opposite of what I wanted to do with this career was happening. So my home life was just turning to stinking piles of steaming crap. And I had a short fuse, and I was angry all the time, and I would, I would get demands and things at work, and it would be upsetting. And then I'd come home, and there would be demands from the wife and from the kids, and it wasn't demands. They wanted my attention. They wanted their father, but their father wasn't there. So I was absent because my head was at work and all these troubles and problems, and it was just the exact opposite was happening at home. So that I wanted to happen. It wasn't a stable. It wasn't a stable environment. It was miserable. So there was one night I remember that I had an argument with my wife, and we were in the bedroom. We were about to go to sleep, and it was related to some feeling that I had of no one really understands me and I can't get a break, and now there's this and now there's that, all that terrible, awful weight. And I remember getting up out of bed, going out of the bedroom door and slamming the door and crawling off to the couch, the lumpy couch in the living room, to try to get some sleep. And I mean try, because and I remember that black cloud that you have, and that feeling in your gut, and that sense of separation and failure and anger and frustration. And as I sat there in the dark on the lumpy couch, and it was miserable, but I had a moment of clarity for some reason. And I recalled something that I had read in a book about, and I can't quote you what it is, but it was this idea that in between things that happen, perceivably things that are out of your control, things, some kind of stimulus, in between that stimulus and your response to that stimulus, your reaction to it, there's a space. There's a small space. And in that small space, your decisions about how to react to it can be made. And I realized I'm the only one that can do that. I'm the only one. I mean, I can't control these things that are happening at work. And I'm spinning out of control at home. But I can control what I decide before I do something, before I act, before I take it home, before I blow up in another conference room, and make things even worse. I could do that, and I had that moment of I'm the only one that can do that. So I can actually take control over this situation, and must. So, because this was untenable, and so I laid down on the couch and tried to think better thoughts, and tried to. It was time to reconfigure my priorities and rethink what I was doing. It had taken me years and years to get to this career, and I was watching it dissolve in front of me. I needed to find some alternative to how I was behaving and how I was reacting. So I resolved at that point I was going to use that little space in between those things and do something good with it. And start searching for a way out of this situation, a way forward, so that I could have, stable income, stable family, stable all that stuff that I wanted. That was my journey, that was my goal. But at this point, after smacking into this wall, so I the following weeks I was all over the internet, looking and searching on the internet. What can I do? What other companies could I go work for? What other sort of things could I create out of my career? And one day it hit me. Again, another moment of clarity. It was right in front of my nose, and it's right in front of your nose right now. The internet. The internet has invaded our world. It's completely. I mean, we've got these smartphones that we're at every instant of our waking hours. It influences. We shop on it. We learn from it. It's a source of information about anything we need it to be. It has changed the world. It is probably the most powerful thing on the planet right now. And the guys that are the most successful, the richest men in the world, it's because of the internet. Jeff Bezos is the Amazon guy, right? It's selling stuff on the internet. Before that, it was Bill Gates, who he created all this computer stuff and the internet software and the different things that he did. That it was all related to this. So it is. I wouldn't say it's the future. It's the present. So I gotta find something to do on here, right? And while you're searching, you find all these, hey, work from home, and hey, I'm on the beach, I'm living the laptop life. and all those things that are alluring, and okay, you can make money. So I was clicking on that stuff, and I was discovering things and finding things, and I do have a good income at this career that I carved out that I hadn't been fired from yet, but I had made a decision. And the key decision that I made was that it was my responsibility, and that I was the one that was going to make the decisions about what was going to happen. So I literally fired this new management in my head. And what that meant for me is that they were no longer in control of me, because I had fired them. Now, that meant if they wanted me to do something, the only way that it was going to be done by me was if I looked at it and honestly evaluated whatever it was that they wanted me to do. And if it was good for the project and good for the movement forward, then I would do it. If it wasn't, I wasn't going to do it, period. And if that meant that I was going to get fired, kicked out the door, that's what it meant. Didn't matter. That was my decision. So I was earnestly, with a little bit of pressure, because I still got to feed everybody and I still got bills to pay, just like all of this. I'm going to find stuff on the internet. So I started poking around. First I started with like an affiliate marketing thing, then I went into like an e-commerce thing, and then I went into like a social media marketing thing, and I was learning tons of things. But one of the things that I realized is for the last 20 years, I've had my head down in my career, in my specialization of what I was doing. So all this new social media stuff, all this new software, all the things that had been developing while I was doing my career, I had no idea about it. So I was coming from way, way, way behind an old school guy. The software I knew was AutoCAD for architecture and Photoshop for artistic kind of things, and some animation type things, and some 3D software for the purpose of building and creating environments. All this other social media stuff and all these other things, I had Instagram, what's that? Tweet? Wait, Twitter? Grown men tweet? That was my reaction to it. Was, really? People are doing this stuff. What? Okay, good. How do you do it? So I was resolving myself, and I torn away the old layers and said, I've got to learn this stuff. So I began to learn these things. And then, and I also was up against the thing, stick with me here, and because I know you'll feel this way, especially if you're a successful professional at whatever you do. I had spent years and years elevating myself to this position, and had done some prestigious work that is internationally known and quite successul. And then I was going to go and do like internet marketing, kind of like, so you're going to go like sell used cars, that same kind of, what are my friends and family going to think? How am I going to explain that? Oh yeah, I'm doing this marketing thing. And that was a consideration. That was one of the barriers and one of the walls, along with not knowing all the parts and pieces. And man, I'm telling you, there's some parts and pieces that have to interconnect, and there's links, and there's domains and subdomains, and there's integrations, there's all this stuff that's like technical, holy crap gobbledygook that you need to know. To a certain degree, you at least know of its existence and how it fits into the puzzle, so that you can carry on with the big part of the puzzle that you want to build. So, so I had some success, and I had lots of failure on it, and I was getting kind of discouraged because and we're talking, I was able to smooth things out at work because I had switched that mindset, and I was just doing things that were helpful. And because they were helpful, they wouldn't throw me out. So the big boss liked me because he could see that there was still something going on that was of value to him in the overall project. So, and that situation, the micromanagement kind of fell by the wayside because the results of it became apparent after about a year. Nonetheless, so we're talking, I'm clunking away at this internet stuff for 2 years, 2.5 years now, and some success, some failures, getting kind of weary, getting a little bit discouraged about it, and the clock's ticking, because maybe everything's smooth and fine with your professional career, but there will come a time when it'll have to change. If you're working for somebody else, it'll just have to change. And that time's coming for me as well, just because of my age. So the importance of this, and my kids are, well, right now Max is 5 and Diana is 2. She's not even 2 yet. So I do the math, and I think, okay, when they'll be adults, when in another 15, maybe 20 years, right? How old will I be? And I do that, and I carry the big numbers. It's complex math because it's pretty big numbers. And I go, holy crap, so I've got to provide an income. I've got to provide this stable family environment for many, many years to come. What am I going to do? So I'm plugging away at it. I'm getting a little weary. I'm getting a little tired. Kind of getting beat down by it, and it's overwhelming. And I'm kind of so struggling at it. And I finally discovered something that I rounded the corner, and this is what it felt like. It felt like I was taking a couple of weary steps out around a ridge, and as I poked my head around the ridge, I looked up and I could see the sun rising over my campsite after spending a cold night in the woods, feeling like I was lost. And as I got into it, it was that, oh my gosh, and that sense of relief. And I still had to walk to my campsite, but I wasn't lost any longer, right? And as I started the trek towards that campsite, the certainty, the confidence, and the wonder of what this internet thing can do set in, because of what I discovered through all these other platforms and programs and sales gimmicks and all this other stuff that was happening. There are some underlying truths, some underlying golden principles that make whoever's successful at this successful, no matter what they're doing. And they all explain them differently, and they use different words to try to get them across, but the same things are there. And I started, after like 2.5 years of fiddling around, I could see that these things were settling, and I found a platform, and this is what I want to share with you, that not only gives you those golden fundamentals, those principles of why anybody's successful at not only the internet, but everything. Not only do they give you those principles, more importantly, they have a way for you to learn them and practice them and employ them. They've figured out a way to do that. And I'll quote Benjamin Franklin. He said, "Well done is better than well said," quite simply. So this platform has this ability for you to not only get these golden nuggets, but really get them, apply them from actual application. And whether you want to use them on the internet or not, or use them in your career, that's the other epiphany that I had, is this stuff it's so fundamental and so core that, yes, they're applying it to the internet, but you know what? You could do, oh my God, and you could do, and, what if you put, you know what I could do? Next meeting I can do things like that. Things that, and so the value of this is unexplainable. There are no words, and this is the best I can do to try to impart them to you, is that you have no bloody idea yet. So why am I telling you all this? Because I found this way, and I have found a way to rid my life of micromanagement, rid my life of circumstances that are out of my control, and put myself in a control to create a stable environment for my family. Would you like to know what the platform is?